Tonight, Central Oregon Daily News, giving you the latest on your choice for 2026.
All right, hello everybody. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to grab a drink, come inside and take your seats. We are about to begin the Partners for Affordable Housing 2026 Deschutes County Commission Candidate Forum. Again, my name is Genevieve Rayome. I'm an anchor with Central Oregon Daily News, which is proud to collaborate with Partners for Affordable Housing in 2026 for a 4-part candidate forum series called Housing is a Math Problem. Tonight's event is the first in this 4-part series, which also aims to include a governor's forum in early summer, as well as Bend's City Council candidate and Redmond's City Council candidate events in September. This forum will be recorded by Central Oregon Daily News and available on our website and at the Partners for Affordable Housing website. Our host, Partners for Affordable Housing, is a diverse coalition of more than 30 organizations, including labor unions, market rate and affordable housing builders, housing advocates, and groups representing people impacted by housing costs, such as nurses, teachers, and low-income families. The coalition's mission is to educate the public on bold solutions for increasing housing supply and lowering housing costs in Central Oregon. Tonight's forum has been developed in that spirit. This event is not a debate. It is not an overview of the 15 candidates running for county commission. Instead, this forum was developed to offer the public a tailored, high-quality discussion on how leading candidates in these races approach housing policy issues in our region. An eligibility standard for forum participation was considered and adopted by the coalition due to the high number of candidates and the need to produce an impactful program during a short evening event. All candidates who had raised $1,000 by the filing deadline were invited to participate. This standard was selected as a minimal bar demonstrating public support for candidates. 8 candidates who met this standard are here tonight to present their views in person. One other, Amanda Page, has submitted answers in writing, which will be read by a member of her team. Participating candidates received tonight's questions 2 days ago to facilitate a knowledgeable and robust discussion tonight. But beware, there will be a pop quiz midway through our program. As we deliver the questions, I will invite members of the coalition to join me up here and directly put their questions to the candidates. Each candidate will have equal time to answer every question. Candidates may not interrupt each other or will risk being docked time in their next response at my discretion. There will be no direct rebuttals, but candidates may use their allotted time to address the comments of other candidates. Jamie Collins will answer the first question first, then Tony DeBone will answer first, and so on down the line. Amanda Page's answers will be read after Lauren Connally speaks. We ask all candidates and members of the audience to remain respectful throughout this evening as we strive together to improve access to housing for all in our community. Inappropriate or threatening behavior will not be tolerated, and anyone causing disruption will be asked to leave. With that, let us begin. I'd like to first welcome Peter Grube, a longtime housing developer and housing advocate, to ask our first question of the evening.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. Let's do this, huh? All right. Thank you all again for putting your time towards all this. It's really meaningful, and we appreciate it. My experience developing both market rate and affordable housing in Central Oregon for almost 20 years has offered a front row to the endless escalation of housing costs in our region. This housing environment has caused thousands of our workforce, including essential workers such as nurses, teachers, and first responders, to move from cities to outlying communities, leave the area altogether, or slip into houselessness. And on a very personal level, the last 15 years, skyrocketing housing costs have pushed my own mom into affordable housing situations. So to begin tonight, could you please tell us your own housing story and how it shapes your approach to policy? Thank you.
All right, you will each have 1 minute to answer, and we'll begin with Jamie Collins.
Sure.
And the timer is down there. You can take a look.
Thanks. Thanks, Peter. We are in a once-in-a-generation housing crisis here in Deschutes County, and if we do not act together, thoughtfully, and with purpose, we run the risk of things becoming even more serious. We just became Oregon's wealthiest county on top of its fastest growing, and that combination is going to amplify every pressure on every working family in this room and beyond. My wife Meredith and I moved here before our son Jack was born, and even then we faced an unprecedented market and costs that far exceeded what we had budgeted. But we were fortunate. The only reason I could afford it was a VA loan I had earned through my military service. But luck and a benefit earned through a decision made early in life shouldn't determine whether a working family in our county can stay. I felt this pain personally, and so have the nurses, teachers, firefighters who can't afford the communities they serve here. Housing is a basic need, and providing it is a moral responsibility this community owes itself.
Jamie, thank you. Tony?
Thank you. So I do absolutely support affordable housing. My wife and I bought a house in southern Deschutes County in 2004. That was our third house, so as a young couple, we were able to get into our first house, and we sold it, and we moved, and we were able to do that a few times. And that was at the $250,000 level. Seemed like such a mountain at the time, and it's just amazing. Many years later, as I say, I'm stable in housing. But going back before that, I had roommates. You know, my first job, I lived in the little apartment behind the business I worked in fact. Then I had roommates. My wife and I, but right before we got married, we had a rental together, and we were able to get into that house. So I absolutely support finding that inventory, finding the land to be able to build the housing for people to be able to get into that housing market. It's so valuable to have that opportunity to be able to work, have your housing, mortgage, health care, savings to be able to move forward in life. And I absolutely support that we should do that. A lot of the things we're dealing with is the Oregon state land use system, and some of these questions, we'll get to that today. At the county level, I support being able to build in the cities and their urban growth boundaries. Thank you.
Tony, thank you. Lauren?
Good evening. When I left the Marine Corps in 2007, I had a job as a GIS project manager. We did environmental and land use data. This started my professional experience understanding housing use. When I was pregnant with my son, we moved up here. Like Jamie said, had a VA loan, was fortunate enough to move up here in 2011. Was not fortunate to not have to go through a short sale of my house in San Diego to be able to come up here, but at least we were able to jump because we were in an economic position to, fast forward to today. And I've been a housing owner here for 15 years. I've also been a landlord here. I've seen the strain that the policies and fee burdens put on the owner of us as owners of the home and drove our decisions of how we did rental availability. Over the past decade, I've personally helped house about 30 people experiencing housing insecurity. I'm talking about in my own home, on my couch, in an extra room, in my yard.
Lauren, thank you.
Yes.
All right, we will now hear from a member of Amanda Page's team.
Hello, good evening. My name is Sam, and I am speaking on behalf of Amanda Page, and these are her answers to the questions. She says, I apologize for not being able to join in person tonight. First and foremost, I am a single mom, and Pearl's having the final music concert of her high school career. She's graduating this year. But 5 years ago, while working 2 jobs, I was fortunate to work with a realtor that went above and beyond to help us get into our home. We could barely afford it then, and we definitely wouldn't have been able to on my prior, much slower income as a ground ambulance paramedic. This lived experience shapes my approach to worker-centric policy and prioritizing how I can help the people who work here and live here. One example of that being, as the director of the Redmond School Board, I voted to pass a tax abatement for an affordable housing complex that secured 11 units dedicated to Redmond school employees who met income requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Amy.
Hello, I'm Amy Sabbadini. Is the microphone okay? Can you hear? We are lucky, me and my husband Dave, we only can live here because of timing. When we got into this market, and because we haven't yet had a medical emergency. In the 70s, my parents bought a wreck of a house in the depressed part of San Francisco, tore it down, rebuilt it, and used their sweat equity to buy the next house that I grew up in. It was a rural property, and we had homegrown produce and eggs. During college and after, I rented dilapidated rooms, basements with apartments and termite infestations. You can't buy a home on a teacher's salary. So I moved here. Parents helped with the down payment on a little house on the east side. Then the market crashed. And before my divorce, I got the house mostly because it was a liability, not an asset. I'm going to run out of time. But timing is everything in getting into this market.
Amy, thank you. Rick?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Rick Russell, running for position 4. 20 years ago, my wife and I bought our first home here in Oregon for $143,000. Obviously, the market is different now. We're fortunate. And we identify with those who have not had that opportunity. And so I've turned that into action in my career around housing. We see people getting priced out of housing. Seniors whose incomes have not kept pace with housing costs. Folks who are young, new in their career, just starting out. We see more and more people moving into RVs, thinking it's going to be temporary while they figure out the long-term plan. And it's why I started an organization that has now built out the region's largest safe parking program. We've created places for people to be and then paired them with a case manager to get back into housing. And I'm pretty proud of our team. Earlier this year, we housed their 100th person. That's a part of my housing story, too. And just recently, we secured $26 million to build 75 units of truly affordable housing in East Redmond. And I'm proud of that work.
Rick, thank
and
you.
I believe housing is a community responsibility. Thank you.
Chet.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chet Wamboldt. I'm running for County Commissioner, position number 4. When I was a little kid, a family friend, this old guy, gets in my face and he says, buy the worst house in the best neighborhood, no credit cards, no debt other than real estate. And I deviated from that in my early 20s, unfortunately. And I became a firefighter after that, and I was lucky enough to be able to buy a home, worst house, best neighborhood, and renovated, flipped over and over again until I bought a horrible house in an okay neighborhood here in Bend. During COVID, I was able to build an ADU. Been 100% rented, by the way. They're highly desirable. And I would like to see more people in our community become small-time developers like that. I think we should enable our neighbors and our friends to be able to have mini developments and be mini entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Chet, thank you. Rob?
Is this one live? Yeah, good. Rob Imhoff, running for seat 5. And my story is probably a little different than most because I've been here since 2004 is when we signed on our house. 2005 is when we bought it. Lost everything in 2008 and eventually lost my house in 2011. So it's really personal for me when I see people that lose their house because they can no longer afford it. And I feel like as a small business owner, which by the grace of God, I was able to keep it going, you're selling a widget, whatever it is, and it's for a gallon of milk. Everything you do is for something so that you can provide for your family, and that's where I found myself. It also impacts your hiring and your retention. Housing affordability affects every business that has employees because every employee has to have a place to live. So now we fast forward, 2026. I have not owned a house since I lost that one in 2011. I've been leasing since 2011, not because I couldn't pay my guys less and afford a big house for myself,
Rob,
but because
thank
it was more important for me to have them.
Morgan.
Thank you. I moved to Bend in 2015 after needing to leave Seattle because I was priced out of my neighborhood there. And at that time, Bend was actually the more affordable option, if you can remember back to those days. I know what it means to move because of the cost of housing. And my ex-husband and I were lucky enough to get into a home, a little 1,000-square-foot bungalow about 100 yards from the train tracks in Larkspur in 2015. When I experienced my divorce, it became a real possibility that I would lose my home because I had my student loans still to pay off. And only because my single mom and my grandmother kicked in to help me pay off my student loans was I able to keep my home and keep my housing stability. And so I've been really grateful to live in that place and realize that if only one variable would have changed, I wouldn't have my home, I wouldn't have the housing stability that I'm so lucky to enjoy. And even with that, have had to rent out rooms on occasion. But all this to say, not everyone has luck or family, and everyone who works in Deschutes County deserves a safe, stable place to live.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Now I'd like to introduce Morgan Greenwood, Director of Government Affairs with Cascades East Association of Realtors.
Thank you, Genevieve. Thank you, candidates, for joining us tonight. In 2020, Deschutes County adopted their rural housing profile, which was subsequently updated in 2024. Is this document an adequate guide to the county's role in lowering housing costs and increasing housing supply? If so, why? If not, what are the strongest strategies, tools, and opportunities missing now, and how would you improve the county's plan?
Thank you. You will each have 2 minutes to answer this question, and we will begin with Tony DeBone.
So I'm an experienced commissioner. I have been a commissioner for a while, and the state law in the state of Oregon is one size fits all for all the lands in the state of Oregon. This rural housing profile is a wonderful snapshot at the available lands, the population estimates, construction estimates, urban growth boundaries, expansions, urban reserves. So it's a wonderful tool. 2020 it was published, 2024 it was updated. If you take a look at the maps, it lays it all out for us from the county level, including all the cities, the destination resorts, the resource land, the non-resource land outside of the cities. There's opportunities out there, sewering some rural areas, allowing accessory dwelling units, which would be a second home on some of those properties. In fact, we have supported ADUs on some rural properties following state law. RVs is a rental following state law, and this does lay out the big picture. Remember, 79% of our county is publicly owned land, so we have the 20% that's been subdivided, privately owned for 100 years or more. And at that point, we need to figure out where do we want to let somebody grow. I was on the City of Bend's Urban Growth Boundary Expansion Plan. Remember, they came in 2008 and said, we need to grow big, and we need to go fast. State said, hold on, stand back. And it took them 10 years and millions of dollars to study how the city of Bend was going to grow. Then they came up with their urban expansion plan, and that's what's being built out today. So the city of Bend is building out that southeast corner. City of Redmond is going southwest, and then they're talking about going northeast. City of La Pine has just finished a water and a sewer project, so there's land that can be built inside the city of La Pine now. So with all this experience, we are kind of at the knife's edge of the land use in the state of Oregon for where can we allow the next, urban growth expansion or residential development. Thank you.
Thank you. Lauren.
So it's definitely a good diagnostic tool, and it has a lot of great data and information. And as someone that thinks in terms of how does infrastructure apply, it would be great if it had that extra layer. To Tony's point, they were able to show where the growth boundaries were, but we weren't able to make predictable and staged decisions about how infrastructure should grow within that. So it's my experience that we often will spend a lot of time studying data, but we won't be studying how to apply that data in the real world setting and what that kind of the back planning timeline looks like to get something done. And the southeast corner of Bend is a real example of that. It was, the next question will go more into SDCs, but who is responsible for the fees to make the infrastructure? Is it the city? Is it the person that owns the land? And these type of decisions cannot be decided on and acted on with a data plan. So I love the data. It's super useful. Every facet that I've ever worked in, these are great tools. But if we don't have action plans to go with them, then that's not helpful.
Lauren, thank you. We will now hear Amanda Page's response, courtesy of Sam.
Amanda says, I grew up in a very small rural town between Fort Klamath and Chiloquin. I know how important it is to protect the livelihood for those farming, ranching, and working the land. We aren't trying to take away from agricultural opportunities, but address affordability. The rural housing profile is a start, but there are gaps I'd like to see better addressed. For example, it acknowledges legislative action is needed to pursue affordable housing on site for employees of destination resorts, but lacks mention of workforce housing for agricultural workers. In conversations with folks like Spring Alaska Schreiner of Sakari Farms, multiple barriers prevent farmers from being able to put ADUs or additional housing on their land or for their workforce. Childcare is just as critical to a functioning workforce. The county should support expanding childcare capacity by reducing zoning and regulatory barriers for providers, investing in facility development, and partnering with employers and community organizations to co-locate or expand childcare options. Addressing housing and childcare together is essential because businesses can't grow if workers can't afford to live here or access the care they need to stay in the workforce. On another note, the guide includes destination resorts and resort communities amongst their list of, quote, existing residential opportunities. Luxury development is not a solution for working families.
Thank you. Amy?
It is a very helpful guide. I've used it several times. What is lacking is how to implement some of the solutions, and then there are several things I'd like to see changed at the state level. One, very few applications are coming into the county on the rural ADU, and I think that's a lack of awareness that the rules have changed recently, and there is now an availability, so I think that's a messaging problem. Number two, the ADU requirements are too stringent and too costly for people, so they're not being taken advantage of to the capacity that we would like to see. Three, rural ADUs should be allowed on EDU, in my opinion, for the same reason that Amanda just mentioned, but also aging in place. My husband does a construction for people to age in place and have their disabilities, homes modified for their disabilities, and that is something that needs to be considered. Fourth, I went to the Oregon Water Resources Department, and I heard many of us testify that water needs need to be tied to land use permits. That's a state decision that needs to happen. Water can be used and reused in a municipal setting. It cannot necessarily, and it does not get monitored out in the rural areas. There are also some modifications I'd like to see where we could maybe use sewers in some of the rural neighborhoods where their septic is not functioning well because of high groundwater. Also, rural homes are far more expensive if you look at that report, and you will see that that is not going to solve our affordability crisis. Therefore, I would like to see us push for more middle housing in our cities, and the county can be a partner in finding that availability. And then lastly, this is not going to land well with many people, but I really think our mule dealer population is declining in such a rapid pace that the tags were withdrawn actually for Eastern Oregon this week. That tells you that we are in a crisis with this important species.
Thank you, Amy. Rick?
Yeah, as has been pointed out, the rural housing profile, it's not a plan, it's really just a data set. It gives us information from which we can make decisions. And we need to turn those into action. So here's what I'd say. Number one, we need to drive housing inside of our urban growth boundary and expand those as necessary. Number two, we need to increase housing supply. And number three, we need to increase housing choice. And so the county has a convening power to work with our municipal partners within the county and talk about some of the ideas that have been implemented in a few of our municipalities, but not all of them, or haven't been implemented yet. I think the city of Bend has done some innovative things. My friends and colleagues at Central Oregon YIMBY have pushed some creative code around detached townhomes and second kitchens and the possibility of single-stair apartment designs and neighborhood commercials, so you don't get in your car and drive to the coffee shop, but you walk to the end of your block and create those more complete communities. Here's a very specific idea about building inside of our urban growth boundaries. One of the largest landowners in our community are churches and faith institutions who have large parcels of land, often vacant, and are interested in developing affordable housing, but churches are typically land rich but cash poor. Well, in the long session just about a year and a half ago, our legislature said we want the state housing department to free up pre-development dollars for faith institutions to develop affordable housing on their property. So now we have a land supply, we have some dollars to get going. What we need is our housing authority and our builders at the table to really implement this and get this going, not just at one or two places, but across all of our our communities with urban growth boundaries. Housing supply, housing choice, and we need to go out there and fight for infrastructure dollars so that we can continue to expand in smart ways. Thank you.
Rick, thank you. Chet?
Yeah, this is a great question. I'm a fan of the document, but we live in a unique space. Deschutes County is unique from most of the rest of the state. It's why we all moved here. It's why this place is so beautiful, and it's why we want to raise families here. I get to knock on a lot of doors, and nurses, firefighters, teachers, police officers can't afford to live here. They're afraid that they won't be able to move from renting into middle-income housing, into more affordable housing. And that's exactly the kind of changes that we need to make at the county level. As all of our cities grow, as that urban boundary, that city limit gets pushed out, we need to make sure that we have development styles that work for them, not $800,000 units that very few people can afford. We need to make this place a home for the people who make our city run, our cities run. And then getting out into the rural spaces, there are a whole lot of agricultural folks who have ADUs and they're not able to use them. This is a huge problem, especially considering the summer that we've got in front of us. We're at 25% of our bare minimum snowpack. A lot of our aquifers are low on water. It's going to be a low yield year, and we need to open up new opportunities of revenue for our agricultural community. I think that's enough. Thank you.
Chet, thank you. Rob?
So I think it's a good diagnosis tool. Data is critical to make good decisions, for sure. But I think that we like, to Chet's point, we're very unique in Central Oregon. So you could be talking about things such as land use. You could talk about rural land availability, whether to develop it or not. There's not counties that have 79% of their land public land. And so when you're dealing with the spacing that we have, I think one of the ways that we can address it that's maybe a little bit unique is that we have to be able to address the fact when my wife and I bought her first, actually, to be fair, when my wife bought our first house, it was 980 square feet. It was not my dream home. That's okay. That's kind of how you do life. You start where you can afford and then you work your way. I think a lot of the rural properties become properties that people later in life, they've scrimped, saved, sold houses, made money, and now they're in a different position financially. They can afford to live a more rural lifestyle, which was their target. I think we can't discount and not have an honest conversation about that's a dream for a lot of people. It's my dream. I don't want to be able to open up my door and hit my neighbor's door. That would be a great thing for me to have. I want a place for my kids and grandkids to run around. Those are things that really matter to me, and I think they matter to a lot of people, which is why they moved here. So that to be said, I think that this specific document, we need to have a treatment plan. So part of it is going to be expansion. We have to have honest conversations about having a longer plan than 20 years, maybe even go to 50 years. You look at some of the urban reserve communities that have used urban reserve as a tool to be able to then ultimately have fewer barriers when they want to bring that into the urban growth boundary to develop it. And I think that we do need to be mindful of what's near services, what's the nearest area outside the urban growth boundary that's closest to the services so it's less expensive to tie in and therefore passes through less. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan?
I know you all read this document at length before coming tonight, so thank you for doing your homework. I'm just going to reiterate what you were already thinking. A really helpful tool with some really good data. For me, didn't go far enough to really dig into the tools that are at the county's disposal to tackle our affordable housing crisis. And so I see this document mention things like really the ingredients that we need most for affordable housing to be able to happen, as far as I understand from conversations with developers. One, really solid data to make decisions with. Two, the predictability of decisions by elected leaders, the predictability of a land use system that is going to be consistent over time, the predictability of county codes and building codes, but then also efficient processes. And so this document refers to those clear and objective standards that I think we need to maintain at the county. I think it's excellent to consider some zoning flexibility for things like rural ADUs. Obviously, the county has a convening role to play in partnering with our cities and advocating to the state to bring every dollar for affordable housing that we can possibly get to come to Central Oregon and leave the I-5 corridor. And then obviously considering urban reserve areas, we'll talk more about that in a little bit. And then tackling things like system development charges that are such a barrier to developers to make a plan pencil out. What are ways we can do that? So I see the plan mentioning this, but not going into detail. And I think as I've been studying this job for the last 5 years, I'm ready and I have a plan. And the next county commission needs to revisit the 2040 comprehensive plan so that we're prioritizing that work with cities instead instead of rolling out the red carpet for luxury development in our rural lands that doesn't add to our affordable housing supply, we need to have an emphasis on deed restrictions so that our housing supply actually matches what people are making in Deschutes County. And things like these tools can set us up for success to make sure our workforce has a place to live for generations to come.
Morgan, thank you. Jamie?
Thanks. So the fact is, the county this document was written for no longer really exists. We're now Oregon's, as I said earlier, fastest growing county. We're now the wealthiest county by per capita income. And that combination amplifies every pressure on working families and gives everything a greater sense of urgency. I see this crisis through my work, 22 years actually working on things like hurricanes and oil spills and wildfires. Housing crisis, I see it really as the same kind of problem, just slower in pace, and the response is the same. You define the problem, you map it, you name your constraints, and build a plan, and then help lead the team that executes the solutions. And so these are three things that I would add to the plan that is needed for this profile. The first, insurance. This is the part of this complex problem on which the county is really uniquely positioned to lead. The reinsurance market underwriting home policies is the same market that underwrites commercial multifamily. And so if the insurance pipeline breaks, residential and multifamily pipelines break together. Premiums and sisters are running $10,000 to $12,000 now. The Oregon Fair Plan has tripled in 4 years, and Safeco and Progressive, as some of you may know, have completely pulled out of about half of our county. The whole pipeline rests on this, and our county commission must take a lead role in stabilizing this. The second is to charter 2 crisis task forces. I think a housing and wildfire task force, and then a housing and homelessness task force to, as Morgan said, connect our cities and be that connective tissue between our state and our service providers here locally. And the third is to focus growth inside our cities. I can tell you where it is safer to build with lower fire risk, faster response times, and a fraction of the water draw, because a luxury rural home can draw 5.5 million gallons a year from an unmetered well. The plan we have is necessary, but not sufficient.
And now I'd like to introduce Kim Gammond with Habitat for Humanity of Lapine Sun River.
Good evening. As the Executive Director for an affordable housing nonprofit, I'd like to ask you about the fees the county charges for permitting and planning. So in Sisters and Lapine, the county serves a large part of our building permitting. Many cities and counties across the state use grants or waivers to help incentivize affordable housing. Deschutes County does not, leading to the price tag of over $350,000 on the 34 homes we are currently working on in Lapine. Do you support waiving or deferrals or fees or a grant program to help cover these fees for construction of homes and developments targeted at households earning 80% or less area median income, and why or why not?
Thank you. You will each have 1 minute to answer this question, and we'll begin with Lauren Connally.
System development charges. So SDCs right now are across the board, no matter what type of housing you're developing, are the same. So I would say a tiered approach could definitely be applied here. So yes, having waivers with accountability, because you have to remember it's a trade-off, right? When you're basically transferring revenue from one generation from one area, and then you're losing it somewhere else. So say you're losing it like in Lapine to fire services. So if you're building a taller apartment complex and they don't have a ladder truck, what grant programs do we need to put in place to help them get the equipment that they need? So you have to use multiple tools here. You also have to build across the continuum of housing, because you still do need those SDC fees coming in to help bump where you're reducing fees.
Thank you, Lauren. We will now hear Amanda Page's answer, courtesy of Sam. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Amanda says, yes, I support deferral, and in some cases, waiving of fees on development for low to middle AMI households. That said, we'd need to establish other sources of funding for crucial infrastructure that is the backbone of the community: transportation, water, and sewer systems. Let's look at how Maui County has created a model for capitalizing on their status as a tourist location to subsidize affordable housing for people who live in the area while disincentivizing the purchasing of homes for speculative purposes. I would establish a dedicated housing affordability fund supported by fees on short-term rentals, second homes, and sitting vacant lots. Then direct those dollars towards, yes, incentivizing affordable housing, but also rental assistance, rapid rehousing, childcare proximate housing development, and community land trusts. Additionally, I want to look into how the county could better support deed restrictions to ensure the housing remains affordable to future buyers. Thank you.
Sam, thank you. Amy?
Let's take this particular development as a case study, 34 Habitat homes near La Pine. This project has a particularly high level of advantages. One, it uses the LIFT Local Innovation and Fast Track Home Ownership Program, so it's leveraging state funding. Two, the applicant has a national track record of being a reliable partner. It also has a dissolution policy if they were to fail. Third, we have an emergency need for housing, especially in South County where it is the most affordable to build. And this is middle housing, which is a fourth benefit. Fifth, it's on a 99-year land lease, which is better than deed restriction. And the septic is already in place, and the septic will lead into a sewer. This is a phenomenal project. Unfortunately, it is the city of La Pine that is the jurisdiction where this project is, so I would ask them to first waive their fees.
Amy, thank you. Sorry, your time is up. Rick?
Yeah, I am supportive, and Kim, this is not theoretical to me. I also lead a nonprofit that is building housing in East Redmond, and before we build anything, before we push any dirt, on our project, we will pay about $1.7 million in SDCs and permits before anything even happens. And so I get it. I get how adding even a few percentage, a little bit of a percentage to a project can mean the difference between building 100 homes or building no homes at all. I think we need a commissioner who understands the nuts and bolts of how these developments happen, and I would love to be that commissioner. We're not typically building large-scale developments in the unincorporated counties, so a lot of these decisions, as Amy just pointed out, are going to be made in our cities and our larger taxing districts with like school districts and fire districts. I will be an advocate because I know what it is to be in your position and try to get these projects out of the ground and get people back into housing.
Rick, thank you. Chet?
Yeah, I love how Lauren brought up the situation in La Pine where some of the ladder trucks can't reach the top of the building. As a firefighter, this is an enormous concern. We want public services that can take care of our community and can keep us safe. And if that's not happening, that's a huge red flag. As county commissioner, it will be my job to make sure to, number one, listen to the community and pull levers to incentivize the needs to come into place. And that's exactly what this program is. If we need affordable housing, then we need to incentivize it. If we need middle income housing, then we need to incentivize it. As I walk around, everybody's talking about affordability. Gas is too expensive, housing is too expensive, food is too expensive, and as county commissioners, we can make adjustments to this level to make your lives a little bit easier.
Chet, thank you. Rob?
So let me start by saying that I 100% support a grant or deferral program for the fee. I don't believe that nonprofit donors should pay to enrich the county coffers. So I think it's very important that we keep things separate for a reason. I think one of the things that we're up against is an inventory problem. This is one way, obviously, to address it. There's a number of different people that are out there that are trying to address this problem, but it's inventory-based. Because in a free market system, it's supply and demand. And if we can increase more supply, the demand goes down some, then everybody necessarily drops their prices, and that creates a little bit of a gap in affordability that we all need. And we kind of have to stop treating housing partners as if they are a revenue stream for the government. I think a lot of them are coming in and out of the space, but more are leaving the space than coming into the space because of the barriers to build. And so I think that having partners like, whether
Rob.
it's, oh,
Thank you. Morgan. It's a quick 1 minute.
We are taking on a tough job where the priorities of our community cost money and the main core functions of county government cost money, and there is not enough money to go around, and it's tighter and tighter every year. And so when I look at a situation like this, I'm mindful of the land contribution from the county towards this project. I'm mindful of the other ARPA dollars that were donated towards this project in La Pine. And I'm also mindful that these development costs can be a deal breaker for our affordable development builders. So I would consider deferring transportation SDCs for 80 to 120% AMI builders. I'd also like to see us, because the county has a legal obligation to maintain our roads and to pay for those roads, we need to look at other ways. So an SDC grant program potentially funded by a vacant homes fee of some kind that Senator Broadman proposed in 2025 might be possible. But if the county is going to buy down the cost of development, we need to ensure that those savings are passed on to residents and that the units remain affordable to our workforce.
Morgan, thank you. Jamie.
Thanks. Yes, I support waiving or deferring county permitting, planning, and SCC fees for housing at 80% AMI and below. And the Habitat homes in La Pine show how badly we're currently allocating finite resources against affordability here. The bigger lever the county controls is through UGB expansion. When a city annexes new land, the county is the one that approves the rezoning, and that's where I will demand a conditioned trade. So fee waivers, SDC restructuring, rezoning approvals must be tied to a percentage of enforceable deed-restricted workforce set-asides. The wealthiest county in Oregon must step up. Luxury destination resorts for the 1% are not solving the real housing crisis that the 99% of the rest of us are facing here.
Jamie, thank you. Tony?
So that land is 4 acres, and it was provided by the county. So we represent, as a sitting commissioner, you, the people, and we represent the land that is the people's land. So that land was donated. In the past, we've also given away taxed foreclosed properties to Habitat, Bend, Redmond, and La Pine properties. And we've really done a lot to empower moving forward. It's good that we're even having this discussion because not everybody in the free market right now is able to justify building. So, the ask is out there. How can we waive these fees? The fees are, it's a fee-supported department. If we do subsidize those fees, we have to come up with the dollars from somewhere. Right now, at this point in time, the income and expense, just the whole operation of the county is on a tight, narrow path at this point. So there's no real opportunity to write off those fees. And those fees are the city of La Pine, not Deschutes County proper. So deferring fees is an opportunity just to make sure that they're out there somewhere. And that's the discussion we could have.
Tony, thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Garrett Mosier, Vice President of Government Affairs with Central Oregon Builders Association.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here today, and thanks for throwing your hat in to serve your community. Really appreciate it. We talk a lot about urban growth boundaries as they are intended to guide the development of cities over 20 years. Urban reserves are a related approach that identify priority urban lands for the next 50 years. Do you believe urban reserves are a useful tool for orderly growth in Oregon? If you believe urban reserves are valuable, how would you specifically go about encouraging cities to adopt them and private landowners to position rural lands to accommodate them? And would you be supportive of rezoning lands to help facilitate the implementation of urban reserves? It's a lengthy one.
All right, you'll each have 1 minute to answer this question. We'll begin. I know, I'm sorry, I don't make the rules, I just explain them. We begin with Amy.
First, let me finish my last answer. Tony actually filled in the gaps of what I was going to say, but I wanted to assure Habitat that if I were elected, I would find that money with you as a partner. And this needs to move forward. Lastly, answering the current question, urban reserves are an excellent way to plan for long-term growth of a city. They identify where development and utilities need to happen so the infrastructure and public facilities can be in place before the building happens, and so the building can happen more quickly. They'll be more efficient and more cost-effective for the builders and for our community. The mechanism already exists in Oregon statute. It's already in use in Redmond and Madras, and it is even supported by Central Oregon Land Watch, which is an environmental watchdog. It does protect our agriculture and our resource lands as it works within the land use system, so I do support urban reserves, and I look forward to implementing them.
Amy, thank you. Rick.
Yeah, I support urban area reserves. As Amy pointed out, they're not theoretical. These exist. The city of Redmond created UAR 20 years ago, and it gives the city a higher degree of control and for predictable growth. And it prevents low density development and to prepare for higher density development. So on the southeast corner of Bend, Caldera Ranch, 91 acres. If that were built out at rural residential density, we'd be talking about 9 homes. But now we're talking about over 700 homes for families and kids. And we need to prepare for smart planning like that. The challenge with UARs is that they're expensive to do, they're time consuming for staff, and so they are just as complicated as creating an urban growth boundary. So what we need to do is work with our state partners on this and say, as a community is expanding its urban growth boundary, let's make this an add-on. As if they're going through that complicated process already, let's add on a UAR to the back of that UGB expansion. And no need to rezone land right away because the FU and forest lands can be brought into urban reserves before, without needing to be rezoned first.
Thank you, Rick. Chet.
Yeah, so the simple concept is, are we going to go up or are we going to go out? And people are divided heavily on this, but the answer is usually a little bit of both. I'm a fan of urban reserves as long as we have a goal on density. And apartment dwelling is going to be part of the game, but City of Bend is looking for somewhere between 5 and 10% rental availability. They're at 9% right now. In 2019, we were at 0.7%. So we're doing a good job as far as rental availability is concerned. The other portion of this is, as the city limits get pushed out, what are the new developments going to look like? I happen to think that a lot of people who move here would prefer to have a little bit of land and would prefer to own their home. And the good news is that there are developments that will cater for these folks, like mini hoods or rooted style. And I want to incentivize construction like that. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Rob?
You caught me mid-mint.
Sorry, you can finish your...
Try not to cough. So, as a contractor, I know that uncertainty is what drives up our costs. The urban reserves, they take a maybe that has a roadmap, and that all of a sudden creates certainty. We need to have smart growth and real solutions, right? So that's kind of what the goal is. The urban reserve gives us that flexibility with a 50-year roadmap. Instead of a 20-year roadmap, it gives us a 50-year roadmap. It lets us know where we want to go. I think that creates certainty for people, whether they're on the developing and building side, or maybe they're on a land use side. It doesn't matter. It creates certainty. And when you have certainty, all of a sudden you see a reduction in lawsuits and you see an increase in homes. And I think that's ultimately the goal that everybody should be striving for, is more homes with less red tape to cut through.
Rob, thank you. Morgan?
I'm also on board with urban reserves. I think they're incredibly beneficial for their long-term strategic planning for growth in Deschutes County. It allows cities, landowners, and developers to be set up for success because of that predictability and the efficiency that it adds to land use planning. I think these take us from oftentimes what I see with urban growth boundary expansions, where it can be a real boundary dispute, and leads us to long-term infrastructure and economic strategy instead. And so it's a signal to the community to where growth is maybe a little bit inevitable and where it's not, and allows us to make decisions accordingly. I believe planning for 50 years takes the panic out of our growth conversation and replaces it with a plan for disciplined growth that will still serve our vision for a thriving Deschutes County. And this keeps us from the haphazard sprawl that I think we all want to avoid in protecting our open lands, and is a middle way to encouraging affordable housing while protecting our rural communities and the agricultural lands we love.
Morgan, thank you. Jamie?
Yes, thanks. So I think, yes, urban reserves are how a serious and growing Oregon community plans for safety, predictability, the two things that our growth here has been missing. These designations let us plan for evacuation. I see things through this lens as an emergency responder, right? Fire response, water capacity, decades ahead. And they can lower costs, as we heard, by removing the uncertainty that challenges our partners and drives litigation. I think you all need to ask yourselves, if everyone up here supports this policy and the creation of this policy, ask yourselves where your county government has been in partnership with our city governments lobbying in Salem and getting this done already. If we are so supportive, why have we not had these tools now, and why have we not moved to date? I would very much like to work with you all in moving that forward and getting that done in a way that we have not to date. So thanks.
Jamie, thank you. Tony?
So think about this. City of Bend in 2008 did an urban expansion plan that got remanded, thrown back real hard. It took 10 years and lots of studying. City of Bend went from 50 to 70 to 80 to 100,000 people. Maybe the city of Bend didn't want to do the next big expansion. 100,000 is maybe about a good size for a city. City of Redmond did an urban reserve plan 15 years ago, and they've been able to comfortably grow in all the directions they've needed to grow. City of Lapine was incorporated in 2007, and they've got plenty of land to infill and grow for many, many years to come. City of Sisters is wrapped around the axle right now trying to figure out their urban growth expansion plan. So I do support the fact that we love the idea of a city. You leave the city, you see the rural, you see the beautiful open spaces, the mountain views, and then you enter the next city. So as I say, there's kind of a conundrum here. After the city of Bend got to 100, 120, and then the state law says you need to plan for 20% more, it kind of isn't maybe the place that we want to go when it gets to that size. So then we empower each one of these other smaller cities to grow.
Tony, thank you.
Oh, I was just kidding.
I know. Sorry.
I'll cede my time to you. No. All right. So, yes, they're a useful tool. Yes, they're valuable. I definitely encourage adoption. I've been in the city of, I've been in the rural areas of Bend for 15 years, and so I watched what felt like that more haphazard growth happen from that expansion in 2008 that was kicked back. And I, again, think in terms of infrastructure. So when we're able to do planning that is long range, like Redmond has done, then you can look and see, water availability. You can understand transportation access and what roads are going to look like. You can understand wildfire risk. You can understand how you're going to decide who puts the infrastructure in first. And I think it's a really curious thing. I've spent 3/4 of my life in other places, not in Oregon, and how we don't build infrastructure out before the city takes over in the urban growth boundary.
Lauren, thank you. And now we will hear Amanda's answer, courtesy of Sam.
Thank you. Amanda says, urban reserves are a useful tool for planning for the future. They encourage continuity of infrastructure and can help cross-check. Encouragement would come in the form of regular collaboration, establish structured forums and advisory councils with cities, regional organizations, the state, and community members to advance housing, transportation, and workforce development policies that are practical, equitable, and resilient. Reinforcing that housing is critical for workforce stability and economic growth, and that when you develop through infill where infrastructure already exists, you reduce fiscal impact strain on transportation corridors and the environment. Rezoning lands to facilitate should be the last option. We should be prioritizing planning within existing boundaries and existing infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, now I would like to introduce Michael Hancock, Executive Director of Bethlehem Inn.
Good evening, and thank you all for your willingness to serve our community. In my role, I see every day how a lack of affordable housing is the primary driver bringing people through our doors. We simply don't have enough homes at every level of the housing ladder, and that causes the lower income community members to get squeezed off the ladder and pushed into homelessness. What strategies do you support for protecting these vulnerable community members? And specifically, do you support safe parking on county land or the creation of designated areas on county land where people experiencing homelessness can receive services and live without the fear of being uprooted?
Michael, thank you. You will each again have 1 minute to answer this question, and we will begin with Rick Russell.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I support safe parking on county land, and helped craft the ordinance that allows it. As I've mentioned, I've built out the region's largest safe parking program and have rehoused over 100 people through that, a very cost-effective form of shelter. There is one way out on homelessness, and it's a 1, 2, 3. Number one, we create places for people that are safe, legal, and sanitary. Number two, we have case management where you create individualized plans for people for what resources are available for their particular situation. And then number three, as Michael pointed to, we have to build the housing inventory that we need at that price point. I want to be very clear about this, that moving homelessness is not solving homelessness. And criminalizing homelessness only shifts the burden to law enforcement. It's a fiscally irresponsible way to respond. And it's not something that our law enforcement partners have asked for. I think the county could be much more proactive on this issue. So absolutely, I'm supportive and glad to partner with service providers throughout the community.
Rick, thank you. Chet?
Yeah. So we need to differentiate between programs that work and programs that don't. Here in Bend, we have a program called Veterans Village. It's up by the Sheriff's Department. And there's a time limit, 2 years. You have to be off drugs, you have to be clean, you have to have a job. And at the end of that 2-year period, the likelihood of success is through the roof. This program is knocking it out of the park. And I think that something that we need to think about is, we want to help people, and I want to help people, and we want to have equality of opportunity for people, especially homeless folks. But do we want to incentivize it? And these barriers of entry are a way of protecting our tax dollars and helping people at a greater rate all at the same time.
Chet, thank you. Rob? Did I catch you a better time?
Pull out my Ricola. If I was a good singer, I'd do it for you, but I can't, Michael, sorry. I think we can all agree the current system is not working. We, as a county, spent $15 million over the last 5 years and seen an increase of 89% in our homeless population. So I think that we have to be honest. If we're going to find a solution, we have to be honest and we have to work together. We have to collaborate with our partners that are outcome-based solutions. I think that every change that I've made in my life has been because someone communicated to me an expectation. And I think we have to be honest and clear. And I know a number of homeless people, some that I'm working with, that that's really what they're asking for. They're asking for some barriers, some clean. They need help. They need someone to listen to them, and they need very clear parameters. Hey, this is what the requirements are of you. And then they step up to the plate. I've seen it happen a bunch of times. Michael, I'm sure you have as well. So when we create an opportunity for them to move out of homelessness, and that's really what they want, they just need the opportunity. That, to me, that's the job of the county, is to create the opportunity for a place for people to move out of homelessness. It's not to continue to facilitate it.
Rob, thank you. Morgan?
I want to be clear about who we're talking about. We're talking about kids our kids go to school with who are unhoused. We're talking about employees who keep our businesses running. And we're talking about 80% of our unhoused community who's been in Central Oregon for more than 3 years. So these are not homeless tourists, as some might suggest. Relocating and criminalizing homelessness doesn't work. It's not a best practice. It only serves to traumatize and continue the problem. And I'm interested in what works. I'm interested in what our experts have to say, and that's the kind of commissioner and leader I promise to be, is someone who listens to data and best practices and pursues those. So we need to treat homelessness like the public health crisis it is. Cruel, expensive, and illegal ideas like moving them 6 miles further away from our cities won't solve the problem. But evidence-based practices, like these 4 things: 1, preventing people from falling into homelessness in the first place; 2, identifying safe camping and safe parking opportunities on county land; and bringing more housing options online while we work on our affordable housing crisis.
Morgan, thank you. Jamie?
Thanks. Yes, I do support safe parking on county land administered by organizations who provide proven case management and the clear exit pathways to permanent housing as they move up the ladder. But here's a question I want to put to the room. Why is so little of our discussion tonight focused on rentals? If we're serious about this housing ladder, I think we have to recognize that almost no one goes directly from safe parking to home ownership. Earlier this week, I learned about a Central Oregon Villages participant with a bachelor's degree making $40,000 a year at a full-time job here who is living in a temporary shelter. That person doesn't need a homeownership program right after this. That person needs an affordable rental that doesn't exist in this county. The person sitting next to me on the stage here, the only sitting commissioner and government official, has cast 8 solo no votes on homelessness in 3 years. The Redmond Managed Camp is sitting vacant right now because the county couldn't deliver on it. We need a homelessness and a housing crisis task force to connect our cities
Jamie.
and get the job done.
Thank you. Tony.
I support affordable housing. That's what we're here for today. We've got the rules, regulations, expectations about how we're going to develop, where we're going to develop. There's a concept of a long-term visitor area, which is a lower level of support, but it gives people opportunity to get a 6-month permit, knowing that they can be there for 6 months, come back for your next 6-month permit, live by some community norms, some cultural norms. You can't recycle cars as your career, cut down the trees around you and sell the firewood as your career. We need to do a full reset on this whole big picture. I did stop voting for a lot of these different things until we get this figured out. There's a moment of conflict that we need to go through as a community, as a society here. And I'm not referring to I'm mad at somebody, but we've got to get serious. We've got to back up, reset, and then go forwards. We can't keep doing what we're doing. When I was a small business owner, I learned you can't buy yourself a job. If you're not making a profit, you got to stop, reset, and figure out what you're doing. And that's kind of the situation we're in at this time.
Tony, thank you. Lauren?
I do support safe parking, and it needs to have case management. It needs to have a behavioral health coordination. It needs to have clear expectations. I've done a lot of work with veterans. I was out at the Veterans Ranch, and I was doing work with the Veterans Village. I was not the one working with housing, but I was on the phone with guys like David and J.W. Terry all the time because people fall through the cracks. And at the end of every call, J.W. would say, Lauren, don't house them on your couch. Because I would usually try to house them on my couch or house them in my yard or somehow, because there's all sorts of parameters, because it's great when we have higher barrier to entry housing because we need people to be able to get stable. They need environments where they're sober and they're clean and they're able to go to work or they're able to go to school. This is not enough time. I myself have experienced my own housing instability. Right now, I'm at 58% of my income for rental. I've lived in a travel trailer a year. I absolutely understand this issue on many levels.
Thank you. Amy, we're just going to hear from Amanda Page's Representative Sam first.
Hi, thank you. Amanda says, prevention strategies first. What can we be doing in the form of rental assistance prior to folks finding themselves in the position of losing their housing? Until we can have the supply of truly affordable housing options, we should be providing safe parking and safe housing options, helping folks access basic needs, and easing on community resources such as emergency response. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Amy, the floor is yours.
Until more housing is built, absolutely we need to employ all of our solutions, including safe parking and managed camps. We also need to help people upkeep their existing homes so they don't end up getting a condemned notice of eviction. And I also want to point out, and Morgan brought this up with the children, children would be better off with the safe parking situations, perhaps like Rick said, where they are in a church parking lot near a school within the urban setting. I think it would be better. There are other folks that maybe that managed camp that's outside of the city limits would be a more appropriate match. But ultimately, I think there are national trends causing this, and this is not a failure of our local systems. This is national pressures. There are decisions we've made as a whole country that are coming to head here, and it's an unaffordable place to live, period. And people are living and working out of their cars because there aren't any options. We have to do something.
Thank you, Amy. All right, I'd like to introduce Ricardo Waits of We Black Radio now. Sorry.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for showing up today. I appreciate it. Hundreds of housing deeds across Oregon still contain racially restrictive covenant language dating back before the Civil Rights era. A 2024 study by the Central Oregon Black Leaders Assembly found more than 200 such deeds in Deschutes County alone, many targeting people of Chinese and Japanese descent. Today, We Black Radio released an interactive map of 160 of these properties with racially biased deeds. Though unenforceable today, these covenants are a painful reminder of our history of housing discrimination. Removing them costs homeowners about $200 in county fees, a cost most decline to pay, so the language persists. Should Deschutes County waive the fee to help erase this language from the community's record? Sorry.
Thank you, Ricardo. All right, you'll each have 1 minute to answer this question, and we begin with Chet Wamboldt.
Absolutely. If we have racially charged language in any legal document and it costs money to remove that language from the document, then we should waive the fee, especially if it's a hardship for people. I didn't mention this earlier. I run a nonprofit. It's called On-Ramp. And we fix Toyotas and Hondas, and we pass them along to people in need in our community. And a lot of these folks just need respect and care in order to take a step closer to being more productive again. They just need a step and with a little bit of help. And if we as the county can help people take that step to feel respected and honored, and it costs $200, no problem. Let's do it.
Chet, thank you. Rob?
I might not take as much time. Yes. There's no way we should be charging anyone to remove, basically pay a heritage tax to remove racist language from deeds. So that's a no-brainer to me. It's an absolute yes. I think that anything that we have what we can do as people is make better choices tomorrow than we did yesterday. And that's one of those for me. So thank you.
Rob, thank you.
It's going to be the quickest round, I
Yeah.
think. We have a lot of work to do to make Deschutes County a welcoming, equitable, inclusive community. There's always work to be done. And there are really hard decisions county commissioners have to make, but this isn't one of them. There are very few actions we can take that have immediate impacts where we can choose justice and right our wrongs. And so this is an easy vote for me, Ricardo, yes.
Morgan, thank you. Jamie?
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I absolutely support waiving the fees at the county. The cost is negligible, and when you have a $750 million budget, but the cost for folks who are living there or may have to encounter that language is very real. The website is awesome. Thank you. I was playing around on it earlier today. I'm not going to call out any neighborhoods specifically because you can really drill down and see the properties here in Bend where this language exists. So love to partner with COBLA, title companies, get this going. Let's post public progress as we go. This is the moral thing to do, and we don't have any excuses because we do live in the county where people make the most money per capita of any county in the state.
Jamie, thank you. Tony?
So I support this. I mean, shedding light on this concept is the value right here. It just happened. You know, it's like, oh, we've got this many. It costs this much. So that's very valuable. It's at the clerk's office if there's a recording. It's in somebody's private deed. So starting a project to do this, yeah, let's go do that. But as I say, sometimes it is just a private property deed somewhere that's even going to be hard to find. So as I think of it as a project, even though I'd be supportive of this, it isn't as easy as let's just pull all 200 out and go do it, because sometimes this is going to be just somebody's private information that we're going to have to go find. So whatever you have there, let's learn about it more, shed light on it, and go improve that situation. I support that.
Tony, thank you. Lauren?
Yes, I absolutely support waiving those fees. And your question also brought up, Fair Housing Council, right? Fair housing for renters. So again, working with veterans, and there, some of them, they look like big scary dudes, and I love them to death. But in rental markets and property managers, you don't have to rent to somebody. You can feel intimidated by someone just by their presence and decide not to rent to them. So I have veterans that I have worked with that we had a very, very hard time just finding them rentals. And we did a lot of work with the Fair Housing Council to try to find landlords that were willing to rent to them, because maybe they have flashbacks, maybe they, split, maybe they have some personality disorders. That, complex PTS is really, really difficult. It makes it hard to even get into Veterans Village. There are barriers to entry when you have dual diagnosis, substance abuse, and PTSD. And it's not just happening in our veteran population, it's happening in about 20 to 30% of our houseless population.
Lauren. Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Hi. I don't even need my notes for this one. Amanda says, yes, no notes, except why hasn't this been done already? Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. All right, Amy. Testing.
Can we start the time over, please?
No, it hasn't started.
Okay. History teacher answer here. I actually would like to turn this into an educational week where we teach about all of the discrimination that has happened in our area. And it wasn't just race relations, actually. The deed language also includes discrimination against certain religions, and my Jewish background would preclude me from being able to live on some properties in Central Oregon. So I think we should be teaching about what the KKK did to intimidate Catholics here with burning crosses on Pilot Butte, and turn this into really a teaching tool. Absolutely, yes, let's do this. And I do know someone who does title research who would be probably willing to donate her time for this too. So let's.
Amy, thank you. Rick.
Yeah, absolutely, Ricardo. Before I did nonprofit work and sheltering and housing work, I've been a pastor. My first church was in the inner city of St. Louis, and I was a white kid from Idaho, serving in a congregation that was half black, half white, in a neighborhood that had been redlined with congregation members who had grown up under Jim Crow laws, in a neighborhood that had been divided in half by an interstate highway system in the 1960s that plowed right through black and brown communities, but seemed to manage to dodge white middle-class neighborhoods. I wasn't even aware of this issue until this question came, and so it does seem like a no-brainer. Just to jump off of what Amy was saying, I do think there's an education opportunity here. I don't know that we do this quick and fast and get it done. I wonder if there's some process to this, and we make this a teaching moment about how race and class and the law have shaped our community.
Rick, thank you. All right, we're going to switch gears for a moment with everyone's favorite, a pop quiz. Take you back to school. We're going to ask 5 questions of the candidates to help the voters. So you're going to use the papers and the markers that were provided for you at your station to write your answers to the following questions. Oh, no pictures, unless you want to, I guess. Okay, but you're going to be asked to hold up your answers at the same time, and it goes without saying, no cheating, do not look at your neighbor's answers. We will ask you to hold up your answer in 30 seconds, so we'll have 30 seconds to answer. And please fill up, this is important because the cameras are a little bit far away and we're staying on a wide shot, so please fill up your entire piece of paper, write big, write bold, so I can see it and so our viewers can see it as well. So is everybody ready? You have your pens, papers? Okay. Yeah, ready or not, here we go. First question. About how many homes must be built in Deschutes County per year to meet Oregon Housing Needs Analysis goals by 2045? In Deschutes County. Per year. By 2045. I'll read it once more. How many homes must be built in Deschutes County per year to meet Oregon Housing Needs Analysis goals by 2045? You got 5 seconds left. All right, and will everyone put up your answers in 3, 2, and 1. Hold them up high, high, high. Your marker's dead? Oh gosh. Well, read it to me what you said. Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to see. We have close to a few right answers. Okay, the correct answer is 2,950 or 3,000. So if you have 3,000, please keep your cards up. And if you did not have 3,000 or 2,900, put your cards down. I mean, you're close enough. We'll let the viewers decide. All right, do we have a working marker? Yes. Okay. All right, so you guys can all see who got that right. All right, now that we have working pens and proper papers, let's go to question 2. How many people were counted as homeless in Deschutes County in the January 2025 point-in-time count? I'll read it again. How many people were counted as homeless in Deschutes County in the January 2025 point-in-time count? And I'll have you guys hold up your answers at the same time just so no one else sees them. 10 seconds. All right, I'll have you hold up your cards in 3, no, right now. Go for it. All right, the answer is 2,108. Looks like Jamie has the exact answer, the only one with that, but we have some, approximately 2,100. If you had around 2,100, I think you can probably keep your cards up. That's a little too high.
That's a tri-county.
Oh, yes, you are correct. You are. All right. Correct answer, 2,108 tri-county, as you mentioned. Okay, what is the state agency that regulates land use in Oregon? The state agency that regulates land use in Oregon. So it's the agency that I need. Is your pen dead too?
No.
Oh.
I just didn't want to run. I'm going back to putting a cap back on the pen.
No. All right, 5 seconds. And everybody put up your cards now. The answer is Department of Land Conservation and Development. So if you have that, please keep your cards up. If you don't, please put them down. All right, good job. Question 4. By how many housing units is Deschutes County currently underbuilt? How many housing units is Deschutes County currently underbuilt? At this exact point in time, is my understanding. All right, 5 seconds. And you can put up your cards now. The correct answer is 7,000, which no one has. No, in Deschutes County, like it's the whole, yeah. We did have a range there, 33,000, and then I think we had as low as around 2,000. But yes, the correct answer is 7,000 units at this point in time. Okay, the final question of the pop quiz is how many vacant rural resident lots were there in the county, so not including the cities, just out in the county as of 2024? And I'll read that one more time. How many vacant rural residential lots were there in the county, so not including the cities, just out in the county, as of 2024. All right, everyone have their answers? It looks like it. Okay, and hold up your cards in 3, 2, 1. All right, the answer is 2,944, or about 3,000. Morgan, Amy have the exact right answer. Anyone have close to 3,000? Okay, if you had 3,000 or 2,944, hold those cards high. All right, congratulations, everyone. Your pop quiz is done. All right, back to our regularly scheduled programming now. Thank you guys for your participation in that. I think it's pretty eye-opening, and it's good to share those numbers with our viewers. I'd love to introduce Emily Boyd, Government Affairs Manager with the Bend Chamber.
Thank you all for being here. I have the privilege of asking the last question. Oregon's land use system classifies about 225,000 acres of land in Deschutes County as EFU, or exclusive farm use land, but much of this land has poor soil quality and is not in use for farms. While serving as vice chair on Oregon's Land Conservation and Development Commission, Deschutes County's Administrator Nick Lilac posed that a valuable land use policy change could be in the creation of a new classification to identify EFU land in Central Oregon with poor soil quality. This could enable these lands to be used more readily for residential development. Do you support or oppose rezoning poor soil quality EFU lands in Central Oregon and enabling these lands to be used for residential development? And are there any additional policy changes you would propose to Oregon's land use system to support additional housing development?
Thank you. All right, you each are going to have 2 minutes to answer this question, and we are going to begin with Rob Imhoff.
I absolutely support, if we have poor soil EFU land, rezoning that so that it can become affordable homes of any sort, whether those are stepping stone homes or whether those are starter homes or whether they're more expansive homes with larger lot sizes. I think that we need houses. We need houses in a bad way. We need inventory to increase affordability options for people. I think that we have to really return common sense to our planning. I think that a lot of what we're looking at, things that were 1970 called EFU that can't hardly grow a rock, and they're not farmable. If you've spent any time in agriculture, you look and you say, I can't farm that land. If I would, I could. And then obviously we can add in juniper growth, which inhibits a lot of the grazing land that we used to have here, which technically could have an EFU certification because you can graze it. This current land, cows don't eat sheetgrass. They definitely don't eat rocks, and they don't like juniper. So there's that. I think that we also have to reform the appeal process. I touched on it earlier, but a lot of what happens is that you can have something that is zoned EFU, and the minute you try to build on it, there's an appeal that comes against it immediately, whether it has merit or not. I think that's unfair. I think it's unfair to people who maybe bought some land so they could build a multi-generational dwelling. Like myself, my mom lives with me. I have kids that still live with me. Who knows if my grandkids will live with me, but I would love to have a piece of land that if my entire family could be on it, that would be great. Well, I also love them enough to know that we don't necessarily want to share the exact same house. Maybe I want to build a smaller ADU or a shop that has an apartment above it. These are all things that when you have EFU, they get challenged in court. And then that's kind of to the point where we need homes over lawsuits. We need to have an agreement that, look, this land can't grow anything, so let's do what we can do with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Morgan.
As County Commissioner, I'll take great care with balancing land use decisions with our urgent need for housing and our responsibility to protect our wild and agricultural lands in rural communities. I want to be intentional about land use because we need to produce the most housing possible in proximity to our cities. And my understanding is that Nick Lilac's idea is not quite as phrased in this question. No big deal. But I'm interested in his idea, and I want to learn more about it, because what he's suggesting is that on EFU lands, exclusive farm use lands, that have poor soil quality and, very importantly, no water rights, we open up a new sort of tier of zoning that would be bigger plots of land than Rural Residential 10 or MUA 10, which are 10-acre plots, which is what our county commission has had a habit of rezoning large agricultural plots to, so that Deschutes County is the most parceled, patchwork, spot-zoned rural county in all of Oregon as a result of that. So Nick's idea would actually find like a middle ground of larger plots of land that maybe don't have water rights and have poor soil quality, but would allow for better conservation, more care for our wildlife, our water, would allow for long-term planning for our water resources and that kind of thing. So I'd like to learn more about it and the impacts it might have on our housing supply and water and wildlife in rural communities. I think Nick has probably forgotten more than I know about land use. But what I'm really interested in is having the county focus on zoning that is UGB adjacent and connected to our cities, because it's better land stewardship to rezone 40 acres adjacent to a city for 300 homes than 40 acres out in the county for rural ranchettes and McMansions. I know there's a way to balance our rural lands and our desperate need for housing. We can protect what we love while planning strategically and fearlessly for affordable housing. Thank you.
Morgan, thank you. Jamie.
Thanks. So yeah, this is not a new proposal, and it is certainly worth considering. Some of the land in this potential zoning category does have poor enough soil and no water rights, such that we can't grow much, and we have a housing crisis. And before we go changing soil test standards, let's use the tools that we actually already have. ADUs, for example, we heard about that on rural residential land, 2 acres and up, are an outright use today. There are 8,000 lots in the county that qualify. Let's maximize that. I think we should need to remember, too, that we've just been dealt a serious warning here in Deschutes County. Just this month, the State Land Use Board of Appeals determined that a shortcut that the county commission, under the leadership of Commissioner DeBone, has been taking to rezone land is not lawful. Then there's where I bring my safety lens, and I do look at every rezone through safety. As an emergency responder, I can tell you the safest place to put new housing is in our cities where the infrastructure, fire response capability, and water already exist. A luxury rural home can draw 5.5 million gallons a year from an unmetered well, and it is a fraction of that for an average unit in a city. The track record matters. Over the last 20 years, the County Commission, under Commissioner DeBone's leadership, has approved 26 conversions of land zoned for exclusive farm use for low-density development. These decisions have allowed this low-density development on 4,000 acres of land. 80% of them are in the county's wildfire hazard zone. This is a pattern of risk that insurance companies have told me is jeopardizing our ability, everyone in the county's ability, to get insurance. So my support for soil reclassification is conditioned on 2 things: safety above all, and that it be used, if we use it, to bring new land into our cities under the urban growth boundary annexation process.
Jamie, thank you. Tony.
So Deschutes County, we do have a wildfire map that's been published, and the whole county is in a wildfire zone. So there's no differentiation anywhere in the rural county. If in a hot wind-driven day, we could have a wildfire event with an ember shower anywhere in the county. Exempt wells is kind of the topic that you back yourself into real fast, because private property rights, 5, 10, 7, 10 acre EFU parcels, somebody that wants to put a non-farm dwelling out there, doesn't have history of farming, that's kind of a real focal point for what's being discussed now. State of Oregon did the southeast corner of Bend for a rezone so it could be included in the urban growth boundary. The state of Oregon, Department of State Lands, there's no history of farming, no agricultural water. It's a rocky outcropping, poor soil conditions. They set that pace for, this is how you rezone at the edge of a city. So then private property owners came in and said, I'd like to do that too. So those are the properties that came to us. It came through a hearings officer. It was approved exactly like the state did. So that means we do need to open up the land use book here in the state of Oregon and talk. Think about this, the soils down in the valley, Willamette Valley, it matters. When you talk farmland, you put a seed on the ground, money grows out of the ground. You put a seed in here and it dries up and dies. So the whole east side of the state, not just Deschutes County, but everywhere up and down in the east side of the Cascades, all the way to the county or the state border on the east, there's a discussion to be had in there. And we can push and fight and blame whatever we want. But if we want housing, we have land, and water is the issue. We do need to open up that book and have this discussion. It's very important that we do this. We tried to do a thing called non-prime farmland because it's exclusive farm use. It was zoned. Back in the day, remember, late 70s, early 80s, we zoned all the land from Senate Bill 100. We zoned everything. And they said, we'll get back to it someday. And then there was the big look bill that said, well, we're going to get back to it. And I could go on. Thank you.
Lauren.
Yes, I do support exploring targeted reclassification of poor soil quality areas. So Jamie's point, yes, water, roads, wildfire, access to services, these things are all important. Let me give you an example. I know a family They live in Southeast Bend. They have a house there. They bought 40 acres, EFU. It's all EFU. They can't build their house there. So what do they have to do? They have to get permitting. They have to go do soil testing to get a part of their property classified differently so they can even build their house there, right? They still haven't built their house there, guys. They wanted to raise their children there, and they can't. They have the water rights for that land. It's in a zone where Avion Water District services. So non-prime resource lands, opening that up, very important. Currently, no ADUs are allowed on EFUs. They are allowed on RR10. So we do, Phil, you made sure to say to me that, because I misspoke, that there is workforce housing allowances on EFU. So that does help a little bit, but can we also expand ADU? Because what people do is they go ahead and build things anyway. They build their barn apartments that are not permitted, right? And that's tricky when you're going to sell your land. How much time do I have?
40 seconds.
We could keep going, folks. Really interesting, in 35 years, we have only unlocked 0.28% of EFU to other zoning. That's since 1987, 99.72% of the 225,000 acres in Deschutes County that are EFU are still EFU. So if we just unlocked 1%, 2,250 acres, then, and we did it in a smart way, in situations like the family that I just mentioned, we can probably help free up housing in the city for other people and allow that continuum of housing growth to continue.
Lauren, thank you. All right, I invite Sam up to give Amanda Page's answer.
Hi, thank you. Amanda says, recent cases of rezoning land for development are not prioritizing affordable workforce housing. Rezoning to build luxury developments exacerbates natural resource challenges and increased risk to the community. My focus would be on creating a well-defined hierarchy for how we expand and hard policy for how we approve. A well-defined hierarchy, like 1, we should be using existing urban land and infill first. 2, get as much high-density near infrastructure as we can and build that infrastructure to keep pace with how we intend to grow. After we've done all that, then expand boundaries. Only after we've expanded boundaries and filled in around the infrastructure should we consider rural conversion. Rural conversion should be the last option pursued rather than the first. Hard policy needs to be in place to enforce this. Is there appropriate infrastructure? Is there enough water to sustain? Does this increase fire risk? Is this long-term affordable? Does it align to existing or confirmed infrastructure ensuring connectivity? If the answer to any of these is no, then we do not build. Thank you.
Sam, thank you. Amy.
No, this is not the Willamette Valley for sure. And we are not the breadbasket here. But ag in Central Oregon is viable. It is. I buy the hay. I'm paying that money. And the reason it's viable is because soil is amendable. All right? So it doesn't matter that the soil is poor. You can improve it, and you can, as long as you've got water. So Morgan's point was excellent. It's really more about the water. And the big threats that we have here to agriculture, because I care deeply about preserving ag, is the high desert. We need water, and we need to stop parcelization if we want to care about ag. Adding a new classification doesn't fix that problem, and it actually could exacerbate parcelization, so I'm not for that. And I did look into the mechanisms, because I was very open-minded with this question, but I looked into the mechanisms already exist. We don't need a new mechanism, because both the UGB and the urban reserve processes allow the rezones to happen as long as they're part of that process, and we don't have to resort to an unnecessary step that could be abused. I do agree with Lauren about EFU ADUs.
Amy, thank you. Rick.
Yeah, we live in a beautiful place, and we need housing. And those are not mutually exclusive. We need to be able to balance that. And that's what this question, I think, is driving out. The real goal when rezoning land is preparing land to bring into the urban growth boundary. It's for preparation in the UGB. And that's critical because any housing we build, we've got to connect to infrastructure if we're going to think about water usage in our region. And so putting second homes with exempt wells in the middle of the county in wildfire-prone areas, this does nothing to solve our housing crisis. I want to go back again to Southeast Bend, Caldera Ranch Development. At R10 density, that would have been 9 homes, and instead it's 700. And there's infrastructure there. This is critical to this conversation. So a mix of single-family detached homes and multifamily at multiple price points. That's what we need. That's the housing that we need for teachers, for law enforcement officers, for service industry, for the tourism economy that fuels the rest of our community. This is about building housing while protecting open space, and we can do that in a reasonable way.
Rick, thank you. Chet.
Yeah, I'm going to look at this from a different perspective, more of a community perspective. So I was knocking on doors yesterday in between downtown and the box factory in the State Street area. And most of my interactions are 3 to 5 minutes, something like that. But I knock on a door, and a 30-something-year-old man comes to the door, and he says, "My dad just died." He's in tears, and he invites me inside and gives me a glass of water, which I really needed. And he's reminiscing about the time that he spent with his dad. How when he was growing up in Bend, he felt like there was more community. And over the past 10, 15 years or so, 15 years since I've been here, the community has changed. It's gone from long-standing citizens who have deep roots to folks who move here for 2, 3, 4 years and then move on. So what does this have to do with UGB expansion? We need to zone areas to make areas for families, to make homes for families that people can afford, and people can afford to make a family and set roots here. It is vital to our community that we have long-standing citizens with the ultimate goal of having multi-generational communities so that grandma, kids, and grandkids can stay in one area to improve the knit of our community. So knowing the areas that are rocky and dusty versus has water and are green is really important. And I'm all for us making neighborhoods that function for families and affordability. Thanks.
Chet, thank you. And thank you all for your willingness to share your views and insights with all of us here tonight. We would now like to offer you a chance to provide a statement of how your work on the Deschutes County Commission will reduce housing costs and increase housing supply. You are each going to have 1 minute to answer this question, and we will begin with Morgan Schmidt.
This is an amazing place to live and work and play, but none of that can happen without our people. And our housing costs threaten our economy and our Central Oregon way of life. Our workforce should be able to afford to live here. Our businesses should be able to hire the workforce that they need. Our children should be able to grow up and raise their families here. And so this is my plan as I've been studying the work of county commissioner the last 5 years. And we've talked about a lot of policy, so I'm going to be broad about it. But anytime public resources, yours, mine, ours, are involved, whether that's donating county land or whether that's tax incentives or expanding city boundaries, any of these tools we've talked tonight, anytime we are using those resources, they should go towards building deed-restricted affordable housing that will match what people are actually making in our community for decades to come. We can do this. I believe that with the right county commission, we can be a place where our workforce can afford to buy and rent in livable cities near the open spaces we love. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Jamie.
Thanks. I want to think just for a moment about the people who can't be here tonight. The nurse who will leave her shift at St. Charles in Bend at midnight and drive back to a place she could afford in Madras. The union laborer driving to a Redmond work site from Lapine or even further south. The teacher commuting in here to Deschutes County from Prineville because the district she teaches in has homes out of reach. Some of our neighbors are driving 30, 60, even 2 hours each way to work in this county. They don't have the time to think through how to manage that crisis themselves, and nor should they have to. They have a right to expect their county government is ready to go to the mat for them, for working people. That's the work I want to do with all of you. I've spent 22 years throwing myself at these sorts of hard problems, building plans and helping lead teams solve them. And housing is the same kind of problem, just slower in pace with our housing crisis here. The people keeping this community really do deserve a commission that wants to go to work for them. Thanks.
Jamie, thank you. Tony?
So I am a current county commissioner. I'm honored to be serving. The land use in the state of Oregon, as I say, it's kind of in a really tight spot. We have tried many things at Deschutes County to open, to expand, to help private property owners develop, to help the cities when they're ready to grow. So there is no doubt that I support affordable housing. It's very important that we proceed in this area. As I say, it's kind of ground to a halt these days. And it's because Deschutes County became a place. I mean, City of Bend, Sun River, Black Butte Ranch, Redmond is growing. Manufacturing jobs in Redmond, biotech here in Bend. There's a lot of opportunities, and people really like being here. So we've got to get through this narrow path that's happening right now, and it is painful. We did do Veterans Village. You know, it was mentioned here tonight. Veterans Village was a county opportunity. Bethlehem Inn itself, you know, the original Bethlehem was bought and paid for by the county. So we do big investments in this area. So please don't assume or think that, you know, we're not serious about this. So as I say, Tony DeBone, electtonydebone.com. I'm honored to be serving. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Lauren?
We have to build across the full spectrum of housing. We mentioned that a little bit throughout every question tonight. Whether it's the houselessness issue or we're talking about resort communities, there's cause and effect, pros and cons, trade-offs to every single one of these type of housing opportunities. You know, I didn't get to talk at the beginning fully about my experience. I stopped at where I was a landowner, right? Where I've had a house here for 15 years. Going through a divorce put me in a position where I went from buying a home here in the most affordable time to now renting in the least affordable time. It's absolutely in all of our best interests to find better policies, to find more stability, and to get back on track with our housing. We need more affordable cost of building. We need more affordable homes. We need better choices.
Lauren, thank you. We will now invite Sam up to hear Amanda Page's response.
Thank you. Amanda's final statement is this. Growing up in Chiloquin, I have firsthand experience living amongst poverty and seeing the effects on the community and people I love. It's hardened my commitment to focus on policy that addresses the challenges faced by folks who have worked so hard to support, sustain, and shape our community, but haven't always had their voices heard. While reducing housing costs and increasing housing supply is a large part, there are broader factors affecting affordability for working families, like childcare, transportation, and elder care. I was taught the importance of protecting the land and taking care of people. This is how I center my decision and priority-making processes today as a twice-elected school board member and would continue to do so as a Deschutes County Commissioner. I am focused on living out these values through expanding obtainable housing, safeguarding our natural resources, and creating a fair, stable environment where local working families are successful. I believe when we invest in people, place, and local businesses together, we build a Deschutes County that works for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Amy.
To finish what I had said earlier, I only got the house because it was underwater when I got divorced. He got the car and I got the house because it was a liability. So yes, I feel this deeply. Only with an economically diverse population can we have a sustainable region. Everyone here deserves a decent place to call home. As a partner to local cities, I will collaborate to leverage state and federal dollars with private investment to bring more economic development to our region, boost our tax base, and build more housing and public facilities for our residents. I will champion smart growth and natural resource protection so we accommodate our population without compromising agriculture and habitat needs. As Commissioner, I promise to listen to the multiple concerned parties, evaluate evidence, assess our budget options, and make an informed decision that does the most good for the people of Deschutes County with the least harm.
Amy, thank you. Rick.
Yeah, for those of you who work in housing, I want you to know I see how hard the work is. And I'm grateful for what you do for this community. And I hope you see in the work that I've done someone who is ready to get things done and build partnerships wherever we possibly can. The commission deals with big issues. Tonight we're talking about housing, we're talking about homelessness. There are issues we didn't get to talk about tonight. Mental health access and public health, and we touched on wildfire and water. These are issues that are too big for even the entire board of county commissioners to solve. These are issues that require collaboration across municipalities, across partners, across the state and federal partners. They take collaboration, and that's how I work. That's how we get things done. And that's work that I've done with housing experts and veterans groups and faith community and builders and business partners and environmental groups. And my commitment to you, and I tell this everywhere I go, my commitment is if you vote for me, you also get all those collaborations with me to work on behalf of this community. And I'd be honored to do so. Thank you.
Rick, thank you. Chet.
Yeah, I like earlier how Rob talked about your first house probably isn't going to be your dream house. We probably are going to have to make some sacrifices, make some compromises when it comes to housing. And the economy in this area, in most areas, works much the same way. It's kind of like rungs of a ladder. And we're missing some rungs in this area. We've got a lot of lower income folks, and we've got a lot of astronomical folks. And there are very few of us in the middle who can afford a place to live. And something that I think Rick and I agree on is that collaboration has to be part of this process. We have to work with experts to make sure that as our towns grow, that we have evacuation routes, that we have safety. And I've done that. I've been in this game for 8 years. I know Chris Doty at Public Works. I know Ty Rupert at the Sheriff's Department. And generating those relationships has been an honor, and I'm eager to pass those along to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob.
So do I get 5 minutes? I'm just kidding. JK. As a contractor for the last 24 years, I've lived through the ups and downs of economies. They say that the best teacher is experience. Well, I've been taught a lot. What I'll tell you is that I don't know very many people who, actually very few, who have moved here within the last 7 years ago or longer. So they've been here longer than 7 years, that can afford to buy their house again today. That's a problem. That's accelerated growth that goes beyond, it doesn't matter how good your job is. If you're working, the best boss in the world is not going to give you a raise that matches that. It can't happen because it's simple economics. I feel like homeownership is slipping away, partially because of the bottleneck that we see. It takes 12 weeks to get a building permit. In Lynn County, which given it's half its size, it takes 10 days.
Rob.
We need to work on those things. I'm already done.
I know.
I thought I got 5 minutes. We talked about this. Okay, thank you.
I didn't say yes. Thank you, Rob. And thank you, all of you. Thank you to our audience, especially for your commitment to remaining engaged in solving our region's housing crisis. As we wrap up tonight, the coalition has just one final question for each of you. The members of Partners for Affordable Housing have worked together to develop a candidate pledge that captures the vision of the coalition's work, that housing will be available and affordable to every person in Central Oregon. I will read the pledge to you now, and when I am finished, I will ask all candidates willing to take this pledge to raise your hand and to please sign the pledge poster as you exit the stage this evening. Here is the pledge. If elected, I pledge to advance policies that ensure housing is affordable, accessible, and stable for everyone in our community. Make my decisions through a pro-housing lens, including calculating the impact to housing costs and availability for each of the policies I support, and transparently reporting the cost impact of policies to the community. Take bold action to address land availability, housing costs, housing supply, and promotion of diverse housing types. For those of you willing to make this commitment to housing solutions, please raise your hand. Whether you have agreed to take the candidate pledge or not, which Everyone has. We thank each of you for all of your time and commitment to housing solutions in Central Oregon. You can put your hands down now. We now invite each of you to stand. I know you're kind of packed in there like sardines. Carefully exit the stage and take the moment to sign the candidate pledge poster on your way out, as you all chose to do. With your markers, yes. Hopefully they all still work. And to our audience and to all of the viewers at home, on behalf of Partners for Affordable Housing and Central Oregon Daily News, thank you for tuning in, and don't forget to submit your ballots in the primary election by May 19th. Good night.